Okay, without further ado, we are ready to kick off this conference, and one of my favorite things about this conference is that we always kick it off with starting by helping center ourselves around the purpose of this meeting, and that is really to highlight the reason that we're here, and that's to help take care of patients who've been diagnosed with breast cancer. And so along those same lines, we love starting with our keynote speaker, and today I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Sheri Prentiss, and her talk will be From Diagnosis to Destiny, Transforming Trauma into Purpose in Breast Cancer Care. So Dr. Prentiss is a transformational leader blending healthcare innovation, resilience, and empowerment. As Chief Medical Officer at CIEN Plus Health, she transforms corporate strategies for global industry leaders. A breast cancer survivor, Dr. Sheri's personal journey fuels her holistic, patient-centered approach. She's a best-selling author, dynamic speaker, and founder of the Live Today Foundation, providing free compression garments to under-resourced cancer survivors living with lymphedema. Her Empowered Life Masterclass and one-on-one coaching help women transform adversity into victory. Dr. Prentiss's philosophy is to live, L-I-V-E, standing for love, inspire, voice, and enjoy. It guides her mission to empower lives everywhere. Please help me welcome Dr. Prentiss. And they showed you that. Just press green.
Good morning, and thank you for not taking my iPad. I really appreciate that. It's so good to be here. I was so grateful that I had the opportunity to be at the opening reception last night. It was just great, and I was so grateful to be honored. Oh my goodness, that was such a surprise. I'm one of those people that, they say, oh, I never get that. Yeah, that's me. I never get anything. But that's okay because I'm here, and I got a little something to share with you this morning. Sometimes purpose finds you in your darkest moment. Mine found me when everything that I loved was falling apart. I want to thank the National Consortium of Breast Centers for creating space where clinicians, caregivers, advocates, and survivors can come together not just to treat disease, but to talk honestly about what happens after diagnosis. Today, I'm not just here as a physician. I'm here as a patient, a daughter, a mother, a survivor who became an overcomer. And someone whose life took a very unexpected turn. My hope is that by the end of our time here together, you won't just think differently about breast cancer care. You'll think differently about people. I've known exactly what I wanted to do from the time I was 2 years old. While other kids were dreaming of being astronauts and princesses, I was diagnosing every stuffed animal I own. You know how when the seams would come apart and the cotton stuff would stick out? Man, I run to my mama, ask her for a needle and thread. I thread that needle, stick that white stuff back down in there, bring the seam together, and sew up the laceration. Yeah, I was that kid. I married young, very young, went to medical school, and had 2 beautiful daughters. By the time I was 40, I was divorced, raising 2 preteen girls, and helping care for my mom, who had been terminally ill the last 3 years of her life. Medicine wasn't just my profession. It was my identity. I was the one who helped, the one who fixed, the one who stayed strong. In becoming a physician, we're both directly and indirectly trained to hold it together, I mean, no one stands in front of you on day one and says, suppress your emotions. But the message is woven into the culture. We learn to push through fatigue, to compartmentalize grief, to deliver devastating news and then move on to the next patient. Composure becomes competence. And I learned, much to my chagrin, that this mindset profoundly shapes how clinicians cope or don't. Because when the crisis becomes personal, when the diagnosis belongs to you, the very skills that made you an effective physician can become barriers to your own healing. And I had to learn, not as a physician, but as a patient, that holding it together is not the same thing as healing. In medicine, we learn to anticipate worst-case scenarios, but living through it is anything but linear. And there is no amount of training that prepares you for the moment when the diagnosis belongs to you. I was as prepared as a child could be to let their mother go until October 1st, 2008. That's when everything changed. I found a lump in my right breast, and it was cancer. In that single moment, I crossed a line I never expected to cross. I went from physician to patient. By a show of hands, how many of you remember the moment when everything changed for you or for one of your patients? Yeah. As clinicians, we often summarize treatment in bullet points. But as I said earlier, living through it is anything but linear. I underwent a partial mastectomy. Nearly half of my right breast was removed, along with the level 1 lymph node dissection. 16 lymph nodes were taken, 3 were positive. And I'm telling you, people love to say, you'll get used to the lopsidedness. But let me just say that used to and comfortable with are not the same thing. This was an aggressive and fast-spreading tumor. Chemotherapy started December 1st, just 11 days before my 41st birthday, right at the start of a good old Chicago winter. I underwent 15 rounds of chemotherapy and 33 treatments of radiation. And I did what so many patients do, especially healthcare professionals. I minimized. I compartmentalized. I pushed through. Raise your hands if you've ever gone through a season where everything was falling apart, but you managed to keep it all together anyway. Oh, welcome to the club. None of us wanted to join. Oh, yeah. You know, after just 3 rounds of chemotherapy, something else happened. I was home alone when I developed crushing chest pain, the kind that feels like an elephant sitting on your chest. Now, do you think, as a physician, I would immediately call 911, right? I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my life insurance policy because apparently that felt more reasonable at the time. I climbed into bed, said my prayers, and somehow, through the pain, I fell asleep. And then the unthinkable happened. I woke up, and I was rushed to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with right coronary artery stenosis. As it turns out, I was born with a congenital anomaly, something called an anomalous right coronary artery, which basically means it's in a place where it shouldn't be. Something that occurs in less than 0.25% of the population. And there are 3 possible outcomes. You're asymptomatic, you experienced a sudden cardiac arrest, that was me, or sudden cardiac death. My vasoconstriction caused by my chemotherapy was so major that because my artery, already in the wrong place, became more than 80% blocked. So a team of cardiologists and cardiothoracic surgeons evaluated me. 22 stents were attempted. None worked. I was deemed inoperable, placed on lifelong medications, and essentially sent home with a quiet version of, good luck. This was my first real understanding that treatment toxicity isn't just a statistic. It's personal, it's cumulative, and it can change the trajectory of a life. So at 41 years old, in a matter of weeks, I was facing a very aggressive breast cancer, a potentially life-threatening heart defect, and my mom, my best friend, was in the final stages of her life. 4 weeks after I was discharged from the hospital, my mother died. I truly believe if I don't give life my all, she will rise up, come and find me, and knock some sense into me. But I was still in the middle of treatment. 3 rounds of chemotherapy in, 12 more ahead of me. I was navigating a heart defect that had nearly taken my life, and yet I was preparing to bury my mom. There was no space between grief and survival. And as a woman of faith, I knew that I was grieving the loss of her body and not her spirit, but it was the body that had carried me, that fed me, that held me. And I wasn't just grieving my mom, I was grieving while trying to stay alive. And in that season, I came to understand, not intellectually, but viscerally, the weight that caregivers carry. The invisible calculations, the constant vigilance, the way you put your pain on hold because someone else needs you more. For her and for my daughters, I didn't have the luxury of collapsing. So I kept going. And eventually, chemotherapy treatment ended. When chemotherapy finally ended, I did what any reasonable patient would do. I threw myself a post-chemo, pre-radiation party. I was so grateful to be alive, so grateful to be done. Ooh, and so ready to get on with my life. This picture here is me with my dad. My dad has always been a not so quiet pillar in my life. Strong, steady, present. God willing, we'll celebrate his 91st birthday in June. This moment felt like a pause, a breath before moving forward. I truly believed the hardest part was behind me. I was wrong. Because survivorship isn't always the end of the story. In the summer of 2010, two significant events happened. The first was beautiful. I participated in my first Susan G. Komen 3-day walk in Chicago. The love and compassion that I felt as a survivor, surrounded by thousands of people, all fighting for the same thing, a world without breast cancer. It was indescribable. It changed me. But shortly after that, another life-changing diagnosis entered my life. Lymphedema. The lymph nodes on my right side were destroyed by the cancer, the surgery, the chemotherapy, the radiation. And what that meant in real life was permanent, painful swelling in my right arm, hand, and fingers. And just like that, I could no longer perform the clinical aspects of my job. The job I've wanted since I was 2 years old. To add insult to injury, my boss, who was not a physician, told me, a physician who is not clinically capable is of no value to me. So at 42 years old, after cancer, heart disease, and loss, I was told I had no value. And yes, I was born on the south side of Chicago. So the thought of responding, let's just say, a little less professionally, definitely crossed my mind. But I was crushed. But being crushed is not the same thing as being finished. Yeah. This was my first real exposure to what happens when survivorship collides with systems that aren't designed to support the chronic consequences of cancer treatment. The months that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I endured daily physical therapy for 16 weeks. I was terminated from my executive leadership position while on FMLA. I'm gonna take a second and pause, let that sink in. From an organization I truly believed I would retire from. I was relegated to wearing compression garments pretty much 24 hours a day as my only treatment option. And you guys, you see my daytime garment? Y'all check it out. Let me model it for you. See the little bling? You get it? Oh, but these nighttime doodads, these thingamajigs here. This is what I affectionately call my two-piece long-sleeve oven mitt. Okay, how can I say this? All right, I'm at a conference, okay. Okay, so if you're married, you have a significant other, a boo, or even if you're your own boo, discussion and planning must occur nightly before you put these on. Y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Okay. And I was now considered disabled from clinical practice. But here's the thing, I still had 2 teenage daughters. And they had this absolutely unreasonable expectation that they could continue to eat every day. Some So I had a choice. I could either focus on everything I had lost, or I could take inventory of what I still had. And in that space, in that painful, quiet space, something shifted. I realized my life wasn't over. It was being recreated. I had to get to a place where I decided that if I could no longer practice medicine in the way I had envisioned, I would spend my life sharing my voice, sharing my story, and fighting to bring an end to this disease. That decision, that revelation came in December of 2010. And in January of 2011, purpose came knocking. And when purpose knocks, you listen. So in January of 2011, just 1 month after I made the decision to reinvent my life, Susan G. Komen put out a national call. They were looking for a new national spokesperson for the 3-day. Because I had participated in my first 3-day event 4 months earlier, I was included in the call. There were 586 applications, and they chose me. Now, apparently applying for a national spokesperson position is harder than getting into medical school. Woo! But in that moment, something important happened. For the first time since losing my clinical identity, I felt useful again. This wasn't about a title. By this time in my career, I had held several, as my grandmother used to say, highfalutin titles. This was about being seen, not as broken, but as valuable. I served as the national spokesperson for the Susan G. Komen 3-day for 6 years. And year after year, I traveled across the country and eventually, through my own ministry, around the world, sharing my story. I educated tens of thousands of women and men about breast health, early detection, and what it truly means to live beyond a diagnosis. And somewhere along the way, I realized something unexpected. I realized as I helped others understand their worth, I was reclaiming my own. This role gave me a front row seat to survivorship. I saw the gaps, the disparities, the unspoken struggles that follow successful treatment. And one of those struggles is how we cope. This chapter in my life taught me something that fundamentally changed how I view healing. Coping does not mean pretending you're okay. Coping begins when you admit to yourself and to others that you are not fine. And let me be clear, coping is not reaching for and consuming in one sitting your favorite gallon of ice cream or your favorite bottle of Merlot. But it is also not pushing through. It's not listening to the person who tells you, girl, just forget about it. How can I forget about it when I'm reminded every day I put this on? Or to the erroneous thoughts that'll pop up in your mind that say, oh, why try something new? It won't make a difference. Our bodies are designed exquisitely to deal with trauma, physical, emotional, and psychological. Where we run into trouble, it's not the trauma itself, it's in our failure to properly recover. And that's where resilience comes in. I want you to think about a challenging season in your own life or in the lives of your patients. What coping mechanisms were used? And did they truly support healing or just survival? As I continued to heal, I realized something important. I realized I wasn't just trying to survive anymore. Resilience isn't a personality trait, it's a practice. In my Empowered Life Masterclass, I teach the 5 R's of resiliency. And today I want to share a few points with you because they're simple but powerful. First, take a step today, no matter how small, to change the patterns of your past, because forward motion matters. Second, refuse to live in fear or in a constant state of indecision. And third, put setbacks behind you. You're not a failure because something didn't work. Failure isn't falling down, it's refusing to get back up. And these principles apply not only to patients, but to clinicians, caregivers, leaders, and organizations. How we respond to challenges sets the tone for those who are watching us. Because whether we like it or not, people are watching us and are influenced by how we live. After my diagnosis, I was faced with a difficult truth. I had spent the first half of my life merely existing, checking boxes, meeting expectations, doing what I was supposed to do. But surviving cancer and everything that came with it forced a reckoning. Since my diagnosis, I have chosen to live, to love, to inspire, to voice, and to enjoy. That's not just an acronym, it's a decision. And for me, that decision became action. Choosing to live required focus. And by focusing on what I still had, rather than what I had lost, I was able to bring a new vision and a new perspective into my life. For me, purpose was never meant to be private. In 2017, I established the Live Today Foundation. Our mission is simple, but deeply needed: to provide free compression garments to under-resourced cancer patients and survivors living with lymphedema. Since then, we have provided more than 700 sets of compression garments to patients across the United States and Canada. And each one represents more than just physical relief. It represents mobility, dignity, and the reminder that survivorship deserves support. Even with recent legislative progress, lymphedema patients who are uninsured, underinsured, or on Medicaid still lack adequate coverage. Survival is not the finish line. Quality of life matters. As the Live Today Foundation continued to grow, so did our understanding of need. In 2023, we expanded our work internationally, providing free, in-person cancer screening and lymphedema education in parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, Canada, and the UAE. And what we saw was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Women and families who had never received basic education about their bodies. Communities where survivorship was never even a conversation because survival itself was uncertain. And in 2024, we partnered with an international ministry and expanded our mission even further, helping set families free from indentured servitude. And I really hope that the video didn't play. How do we get the video? AV people? That's a video. Okay. You all were supposed to see a very dynamic video, and it's a shame that that wasn't checked before. With the video demonstrating us in the brick kilns in Pakistan, an area where a man may have borrowed money for his daughter's wedding and was unable to pay off the debt. Well, the owner of this brick kiln will offer him the money to pay for his daughter's wedding. But unfortunately, he's not able to meet the terms. And so, in order to pay off his debt, he and his family comes to an area called the brick kiln. And they live there, and they make bricks daily to pay off this debt. Unfortunately, many of these families have no schooling. So they're unable to read, unable to do math. So all they can do is rely on what the person is telling them the debt is owed. And so he moves his entire family. And when I say the brick kilns, these homes are just brick rooms, one big room. It may be a family of 4, it may be a family of 6, it may be a family of 8. There's a little small area outside that they call the kitchen. There's holes in the ground which become their restroom. There's no electricity, and if you happen to try to get, it's good. Call for the, I don't have to tell you all anymore. Here we go. No, wait. Okay, video, play the video. Call for it. Prentiss with Rod and Staff Ministries. I am so very grateful. We are here at the Bricklands, and God has laid upon our heart to love on God's people. And not only are we delivering the word of God, but we came so that we could feed the belly. word servant. That have a debt that to no fault of their own have to serve and work off. Entire families, generations upon generations, set in a system that was designed to never set them free. But God has laid upon our heart that these people need to be free. They are God's children. So we are here today freeing families, and not only freeing them, but empowering them to take care of themselves, bring in their own income, raise their families, and break generational curses. So well, we need your help. We can't do it alone. We need your help. Please consider joining us in this effort to set people free, to deliver souls, and allow individuals to live today. I'm grateful that Rod and Staff Ministries opened up their doors to partner with my nonprofit organization, the Live Today Foundation. And I'm telling you, I couldn't be more exuberant to know that work that I am doing is allowing individuals to live today and every day. You too can join the Live Today movement with Rod and Staff Ministries. Donate, free individuals, and watch God bless your life and watch the blessings upon these people. Join us so that people can live today and every day. God bless you. That's the kind of work I get to do. Each and every time we go and we free. We don't just free, but we free and empower. Meaning that once they leave, okay, you've been in an enslaved mentality. How do we move past that? They receive trauma counseling. They receive a home. They receive either a produce cart or a tuk-tuk, like the little cab, so that they can begin to create and have a life of their own. They're supported by the churches there, and each time we go, we feed everyone. On that particular day, more than 1,000 people were fed, and more than 1,000 people were seen to get free health screening, cancer screening, TB screening, nutritional screening, and they remain connected with the health professionals that we were able to bring to light of what was happening in their own communities. How many of you live in communities where things are happening, but unless you're told about it, you don't even realize it's happening around you? So I am very grateful. But when I think about everything that brought me here, this work reminded me of something important. Healing is never just physical. It's social, economic, spiritual, and deeply human. When we talk about breast cancer care, we cannot separate health from the conditions in which people live. If you had asked me years ago if I would choose this path, cancer, heart disease, disability, loss, I would have said, absolutely not. Have you lost your ever-loving mind? But here's what I know today. By refusing to give up, one of my greatest tragedies became one of my greatest blessings. Death was inevitable for me, regardless of my choice. It's inevitable for every person on this planet. The real question is not if we will face adversity. It's whether we will relinquish our power to it. And that brings me to you. Nothing and no one can prevent you from reaching your purpose without your permission. And purpose is not only what you do, it's how you do it. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. Some say, YOLO, you only live once. But the truth is, you die once. You live every day. So I want to ask you something. Not as clinicians, not as caregivers, leaders, or advocates, but simply as human beings. How will you live today and every day? As I bring this to a close, I want to leave you with what I call my prescription for life. It isn't written on a pad, and I'm so sorry, it does not come with refills. But it has guided me through periods of loss, uncertainty, and profound change. And it is to live, to love yourself and others, to inspire those around you, to voice your dreams and ambitions, and finally to enjoy life, not someday, but every single day. I wrote my book to share this story, not as a how-to manual, but as an honest account of what happens when life changes without your permission. It's a story of vulnerability, of self-examination, and ultimately self-discovery. But the message isn't about me. It's about you. As clinicians, caregivers, and leaders, you hold tremendous influence. Your patients are watching how you navigate uncertainty. Your teams are learning from how you care for yourself. And your presence, your humanity, it matters more than you may realize. So today, I leave you with this question. How will you live today and every day? God bless you. Now I need you guys to do me a favor. And this is not a cheap way to get y'all to stand up. I go back and tell everybody, girl, I had a standing ovation. But what I love to do every time I speak is to have you and my audience to make a declaration to yourself and those around you. Many of you may be sitting with people that you came with. So that's your accountability partner. And I'm going to want you to stand to your feet, and on the count of 3, I'm going to want you to just simply say, I choose to live. Can you do that for me? All right, so I'm going to need you guys to stand up on your feet. And I'm recording this. I'm going to get you, get my camera clean, get my lenses good. Okay, here we go. So on the count of 3, what are you going to say? I choose to live. And I mean, say it like you mean it. You want to shout, you want to move your hands, whatever. Say it like you mean it and mean it from your heart. And if you're choosing to live, and each day that you choose to live, pick a letter. Today, I'm going to love myself and others. And then when you get in line at Walmart, tell a person, oh, that's a beautiful color on you. Show a little love. It's real simple, but make it a practice. All right, so here we go. Thank you.